Hi, I'm Meenakshi Shedde. I'm here at the Berlin Film Festival with the team of the fantastic film from Pakistan, Lali. This is Sarmad Sultan Khoosat, the director. This is Mamya Shajafar, the lead actress. This is Kanwal Khoosat, the producer. We haven't seen too many women producers from Pakistan. Very welcome. We had a fantastic world premiere at in the panorama section at Berlinale last night. What was it like to make a huge comeback on the international scene after a long time? Yesterday.
Um, Butterflies in the stomach for sure. I was very anxious, very nervous, but just seeing that hall full of people and that size of a screen and the grandeur of Zooplast was just, yeah, I'm still kind of,
Sure. But
absorbing it.
tell us about the audience response to the film.
The first 20 minutes, I wasn't there. I can't be there. I usually just,
Yeah.
just
Disappear.
disappear and take my nerves out of the hall. But then I came back and I was just mesmerized by the fact that the beats were landing, the funny bits, the emotional bits, and across all kinds of audience. I was like, okay, only Desis perhaps would get the,
Yeah.
the Punjabi jokes or the finer Punjabiness of it. But
It was a
I was
very
quite
international audience as
surprised.
well.
Yes, I was
Yeah.
quite surprised that it, and I'm really grateful to everyone who made it possible that the film is made in a way that people are getting it.
Yeah. So super. So super. So Sarmad Sultan Kusat and Kanwal, they have a huge body of work. They have Kusat Films, which is one of the premier studios in Pakistan. But he's directed a huge body of work in films and television, including Zindagi Tamasha was one of the ones that set him off on the international scene in a big way. It was at the Busan Film Festival where he won the Kim Ji-seok Award, very prestigious one. It's a circus of life. Life is a circus.
Yeah,
That's the English title.
circus
And
of
then,
life.
of course, now with the big one, Lali at the Berlinale in Panorama. And then he's made a whole lot of very persistently been creative all along, including Kamli and a whole number of films in between. I like that he has never stopped you from, um, regardless of the response or regardless of whether it finds the audience it deserves, you've just been at it consistently. Tell us what gives you this, I mean, really persistent, because it's not always that you recover money, but you're always finding the way to not only keep making films, but also tell it the way you want, which is a very specific and distinctive way of storytelling. Where does
Hmm.
that come from?
I mean, this is the only kind of work I know how to do. I
Yeah.
wish I had something else to kind of fall
Where does
back
the money
on.
come from? Is it advertising, commercial work? Where does the money come from?
Oh,
Because
so
so much productivity,
I
creativity.
I do some soul selling.
Yeah.
Like,
Like all of us. I don't know. I'm
I
dying to say. I would have loved to see Kusat in a kitchen. I would like to see
I do
that.
some soul selling. It's like,
Yeah.
television is where,
Yeah.
primarily one makes money, and then television commercials and,
Yeah.
small gigs here and there,
Yeah.
like corporate gigs.
Yeah.
I write copies and
The
things, and,
whole deal, like everyone else.
yes. So, so with film, somehow, thankfully, I've been able to keep it with its, like that very isolated, tampered kind
Yeah.
of
Fantastic.
little box where then I do all my hustle, and then
It
when it's
pours into this.
time, yeah, then I'm like, okay, now it's indulgence time.
So lovely.
And with TV, mostly it is just commissioned work, like
Sure.
including a show like Humsafar,
Yeah.
where a producer has gotten it written already. Usually it's the casting's done, or it's done with a very different lens
Yeah.
of sellability,
Yeah.
etc.
And of course, he's a very fine actor with a huge body of
Yeah.
work. Yeah. Yeah.
So that means when it comes to cinema, so I would like to believe that I would want my independence, my freedom. That's why I
Absolutely.
don't go
It's
to
clear you have
the
it.
big production houses,
Yeah.
because most of the films are being, I mean, the few films that we make, so they are funded or produced by TV channels,
Yeah.
and I, I don't like that
Yeah.
sequence of
Sure,
engineering.
sure, sure.
It has to, I feel, come from
Forward
uh,
engineering, not reverse
yes,
engineering.
and some kind of like sense of authorship to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So so far, I mean, I just feel we've been lucky that um, kahin na kahin say we find like
I think it's
people
because you
who can
deserve it.
people who make it possible.
Yeah.
You know.
Tell us a little, very briefly, the story of Lali for those who haven't seen it yet, if that's
Oh,
possible.
oh yeah. I mean, Story of Lali is it's a story about just two people getting married and then getting into a very messy kind of life events.
Yeah.
And Lali is about celebrating the spunk of Punjabi culture
Yeah.
with all its chaos and heat. And you know, the idea was to be very playful
Mm-hmm.
with the the tone of the film,
Mm-hmm.
like just not feeling kind of compressed or pressured by the idea of sticking to a genre even. I
Sure.
was
Actually,
like,
it's many, many things in
it
one
is,
film.
it
Many
is.
things.
I mean, and it did come with a lot of fears. I mean, because, you know, you're always unsure about what you're doing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those
Yeah.
people who'd be like, yeah, this is it, and I'm
Yeah.
making it. No, it comes with that kind of, doubt and a lot of just, self. Uh, what do you call that? Like just
Yeah.
Lali for me primarily is a is a simple story of two people who are like an odd match, or actually they're not. They're like the perfect match for each other.
Mm-hmm.
One with a very obvious kind of scar, and another bringing
Yeah.
another kind of, scar, which
Yeah.
is just her reputation or
Yeah.
bad luck.
Yeah.
And then life happens
Yeah.
in all its strange, chaotic,
Yeah.
messy ways.
Yeah. So to me, essentially, it's about this married couple where the woman is seen as cursed, and the husband is very insecure, and there's a lot of different kinds of violence. There's domestic abuse, but also much more psychological abuse, emotional abuse, and over everything else, the spirit of the mother hovering over all the proceedings while she's alive and while she's after she's gone. In a very strange way, to me, the film is very Punjabi Pakistani in how you're telling the story, its main elements, and a lot of psychological depth. But in another way, somehow, I don't know, maybe I'm reading things into it, by having these guys like a Greek chorus, these five guys who are always singing songs in between and coming in and going out, but the songs are commenting on the story and different, also kind of metaphors, like when this couple is in the sand and there's really this beautiful spark of desire, and you're focusing on the feet coming closer, and it somehow seems to me like there is almost like quicksand. It's like sucking them down, and very powerful moments without dialogues, which you've done so well in this, and also a very twisted and dark desire. And I love the very feminist, spunky twist at the end. So that was like redeemed a lot of the dark stuff before. But was this just flowing organically? How did this? Oh, am I imagining it like this Greek chorus thing, or very classical tragedies, elements of love and tragedy, which we see in Western literature and stuff? Or what? How did the story evolve? Also with Sundus Hashmi, right? You
Sons,
you wrote
yes,
it with her.
we wrote it
So
together.
tell me, how did the story evolve, and what did she, as a woman, and her talent bring to the story?
So it began with a short story. It's inspired from a short story, and that short story I
Kali,
would say Kala
Kali,
Kamal.
Sarmad, yeah.
So it's the last 10 minutes of the film.
Okay.
So that's where it started. Like
Okay.
I was obsessed with that story once I'd read it, and it was many years ago, and I wanted to create something around it. But because it's so dark, I kept kind of extrapolating it in even darker sort of directions. So the big aha, or the unlocking happened when I was like, well, it gets darker, and then before that we just need to create a world which is just hot and funny
Yeah.
and crazy,
Yeah.
and then it gets there without taking the burden of, okay, it should lead to it. That
Mm-hmm.
could come as a weird twist.
So
So
ironically, you had the ending fixed, and you had
yes,
allowed you more playfulness to how you arrive at
yes,
that. Very
yes. So
interesting.
that short story is what makes now the chapter five of
Okay.
the film, as the film is now
Okay.
divided in five chapters. And it was, I mean, I feel collaborative writing is just beautiful and also practical in a way that,
Mm-hmm.
you don't get any luxury to be lazy,
Yeah.
or you do have a sense of deadline, and then just bouncing off ideas of each other. So Sundus came on board quite early on,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had like this mess of like this journaling that I had done, and just stuff saved on my phone and notes here and there, and that short story. So we had a lot of fun, like, creating this world with, you know, uh, initially, how you start with more and more and more, and then we were like, no, start taking it
Less
out
is more, huh?
because it had to
You
be
already
this
have a lot anyway.
anyway. But I think it just started making sense. Yeah, so getting Sonia May as the anchor, that
Hmm.
life force, and
Yeah,
then I think, we needed music, and then we needed more neighbors, and then
yeah.
Sonia May's like, immeasurable love needs more people to give it to, and then these singers come in, and those three sisters who live in next door, they come in,
Yeah.
and
It
so
just
yeah,
grew
that
from there.
grew from there, I
Fantastic.
think. Yeah.
Fantastic. Mamia, this is a very demanding role. I know you have a body of work before you, but this is very intense. I imagine very draining, and in a ironic way, also very liberating. So, how did you prepare for the role, and what was very difficult? What was very challenging for you to do?
Um, so Sarmad really helped through the process. We went into writing her history, so things that were not on screen, things we
Mm-hmm.
were not shooting, her childhood, and then, lovers was her interests, the things she likes to watch, what kind of girl she was. And from there, it just became real. Like when there's so much history and you were just impersonating this human being you know so much about, you just have to remember that person and be very present. And Baki ho jata hai.
हो जाता है?
I
It
guess.
has incredibly uh, dark depths that it reaches out into. And I'm very curious. I have to ask him where that came from. But where did that come from for you
uh,
as an artist?
I think observing, just being present and just keenly watching um, the society, people, and taking from that fragments of things that happen around you. And like the film is so real. Like I've seen so much of it, parts of it in my life, and around me, in different parts of society, different classes. So just remembering that, I think, really helps.
Wow. And how did you? I don't know. It's quite demanding even for the audience. I can
Hmm.
imagine how much you must have poured into it. So when you weren't actually shooting, were you like having fun outside or something to
Hmm.
regain your energy to go back into very, very, very intense? A lot of it is very intense and
Mm.
emotionally demanding, right?
Yeah.
So how did you recoup your energies? Because it's quite a sustained period of the film that you're in this very intense emotion.
I think not doing that is what got us to do it. Like I don't
Meaning?
meaning we stayed in it. I mean,
Okay.
I did not really,
Get out
get
of it.
out of
I
it
see.
when
Okay.
we were on set. And I remember one of the first intense scenes we did, and he was like, just stay in it. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then I just continued to do that through the shoot, and yeah, that helped.
And what was the scene that took maybe many more retakes than you imagined, or
Hmm.
what was demanding for you? Which scene was very tough to pull off?
Hmm. I think uh, the climax, the last bit.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Summarize a bit for those who haven't seen the film.
Ah,
Just a
wow.
gist, without giving away too much, but
Mm.
just
I had to, I mean, it was physically, vocally, and mentally. And that's when I realized that doing less kind of takes sometimes more out of you. Like when you're unable to express and you're suppressing, it takes a toll on you more than when you have to physically exert more, perhaps. So when I am scared, it takes more energy than when I am perhaps making someone
more
else
centered.
scared.
Okay, okay, that's a good space to be.
Yeah.
Kanwal, I'd like to ask you, this was really an astonishing scale of a film to pull off with some extraordinary desert landscapes, very intimate house, locality, neighborhood landscapes, and really a rich, incredible texture to the film that we've very rarely seen in an international space coming out of Pakistan, and the classiness with which you pull it off. So, how did you pull off the producers? It's people we are not familiar with, but clearly it's a great job. So, tell us about this film and also your work earlier that led to this.
So I am, yes, the producer and the production designer on the film. Perhaps, these two roles, however much they, let's say, add to the amount of work that one has to do, being responsible for two major, production departments. I think that, it on many levels, liberates. both the creative and the managerial aspects of the job. Because being a producer, it allows me to understand and take care of the team of, let's say, the persons who are going to be responsible for, let's say, art direction, making those sets and those costumes, and then the finer nuances of the construction of all of these things that visually make a narrative come alive. Of course, this scale of production, I would say that, of course, I had not done before, but Joyland kind of, gave me, because I was a production designer on that, kind of gave me a foray into what these internationally, let's say, positioned films in scale, while being produced in the limitations of, let's say, our, lack of industry structure that we have back home, and how can those kind of, let's say, productions be pulled off. So I would say that, I felt like I was more than prepared for this kind of narrative
But you have
production.
producers from Dubai and stuff. So
We
tell us a
did,
bit
in
about
fact,
them.
yes. This was also
The
my
company
first
name.
production, our first production, where we tried raising these private equities. And I would say that this was not in the truest, or let's say in the truest industry way, let's say the international industry way, that we were raising these funds. All these people were, let's say, one of them is of course a company, but then most of them were friends with Sarmad. So he was, not just, let's say, their favorite, as a storyteller, but he was, of course, they were friends with him. So they, however much they didn't understand the, let's say, practical intricacies of the project, but they had a blind faith in Sarmad, and they knew that he was, whatever stories that like that, what do you call that, touch, I don't of course remember the term, but then again,
Like golden
they
touch,
knew
what
the
he does
golden
with
touch,
God.
exactly. they
Yeah.
they just trusted him blindly, and it was primarily for him that they wanted to
Yeah.
invest in this narrative. And I'm sure they have got a huge gratification out of this
That's
project.
super. Thank you. So last question. So Joyland. You were producers on Joyland, which was completely in an international space as well. It was won a jury prize at Cannes, was an Oscar shortlist. Are you able to take advantage of larger initiatives like Riz Ahmed's left-handed films, the Pillars Fund, Mo Naqvi's There is a Pakistan, Academy Selection Committee? Is Pakistani cinema changing because of these more international Pakistani diaspora talent and many more opportunities, or do you see it going forward in a different way?
I mean, it's not translating into as many opportunities as one would, believe it to be.
Okay.
Um, these are happening, like, I mean, between, say, Joyland and now,
Yeah.
we have not seen a lot of films come out of Pakistan,
Hmm.
and it is still quite tough for, say, these kind of partnerships on a global scale, because of the lack of an industry structure. And we would hope that these dots can be
Joining.
joined,
Yeah.
and then they lead to more work, more
Yeah.
opportunities,
Yeah.
for more people, because
Yeah.
there's definitely not a dearth of artists and
For
filmmakers.
sure. This is why I was
S-
looking to make the
yes,
international connections and be more global.
yes, and the newer kids, I mean, or the next generation of filmmakers that we have, I mean, they're really bright. I
Brilliant.
mean, because all these films uh, that I've made, I mean, it's literally made with people with zero or very little experience
But so
before this.
gifted.
So gifted,
Yeah.
because and that's, I think, what keeps me going too.
Yeah.
That's what makes me just believe that we
Wonderful.
have the potential to do
That's
more
true.
and offer more.
I hope Lali goes forward and Pakistani cinema goes forward. Thank you so much for giving me your time. Really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Meenakshi.
All the best.
Pleasure,
All the
pleasure.
best.